are good. Okay, here we go. So we are on brachot, page 29, and we are speaking of the seven. Speaking of the prayers. So it says, "Hani shiva deshabta keneged me." So we have 7 blessings. Do you have it?
Yeah, which section? Did we fit?
We're in, again, brachot, page 29.
We're still on A or?
We are, let me see, we are on 29a.
Okay.
29a. So he says, the 7 blessings of the shemona esrais on Shabbat. Why were they instituted? So, Amar Rav Chalafta bar Shaul, so Rav Chalafta, the son of Shaul, said, Keneged shiva kolot she'amar David al hamayim. It corresponds to the 7 voices which David said in the prayer of Habul Hashem, which is Psalm 29, connected with the voice of Hashem is upon the waters. Now, why that particular prayer? So it says in the commentaries explain, I think it's Ian Yaakov who said this. So have to see the Ian Yaakov. Where is it? Yeah, the Ian Yaakov says like this. The reason for this mizmor, this psalm to be picked, is because it hints to the Torah that was given on by the voice of God as a power, and so that's why since it was given on Shabbat, so that's why we're praying for. That's why we're using that psalm. You don't have it?
I don't have that one.
Keep it open because you'll get to it. Don't worry. That's how you get the 7 prayers. They're corresponding to the 7 voices that Hashem gave. And also, interestingly enough, he brings down something else that will blow your minds. It's also corresponding to the 7 books of the Torah.
7.
There you go. That's right. We only have 5 books of the Torah. So it said 7 books of the Torah because they're counting Vayihi ben Aharon as a separate book. If you go to the Torah, you'll see 2 nuns that put the Vayihi ben Torah and encircles that. So that's considered like a separate book. And there's one other place that does that, so you get to 7 books. Okay, and so that's why, that's another reason for 7. But main thing is, again, Hashem gave the Torah mid loud thundering, and so since you have that, since the Torah was given on Shabbat, so that's why we have for the 7 voices, you have 7 prayers. Okay, it's interesting because you would have thought, you don't. I don't know what you would have thought. If somebody would ask you on the weekdays, we have 18 prayers, which we already answered what that was for, and we said that was for the 9. No, that was the other thing. That was for the 18 mentions of Hashem, if I remember correctly. And so now we're going through all these things of all these numbers we have. We have 7 prayers in the Shemona Esrei of Shabbat.
That's the first 3, the last 3, and
the middle one, right? So that, and why? Because the Torah was given on that day, and since the Torah was given on that day, and there were 7 voices for as it were in the Torah of God speaking. So therefore, that's why there's 7 prayers. It's an interesting concept, okay? And why that? Because the Torah was given on Shabbat, which is also an amazing thing when you get into it. Because if the Torah was given on Shabbat, in other words, God descended upon Mount Sinai, as it were, and gave the Torah on Shabbos. How does that happen? How are you going to give us something? I mean, you can get to a whole, I'm sure you're thinking about this, Yigal. How do you get from the Reshut to Reshut? Right?
Yeah.
You're going from Reshut Rabbim to Reshut Yachid and so on and so forth. Everybody's surrounding us. You're all surrounded around the mountain. The mountain's moving on top of you according to Midrash. So now you're moving in. How do you do that? How do you get away with all the Shabbos issues? We're not going to discuss that, but I'm just saying when you get into the concept of it was given on Shabbos, and Moshe died on Shabbos, and Moshe wrote 13 Torahs on the day he died, which means he wrote on Shabbos. How do you work all that out with the Midrashim? Really, it's an interesting concept that, maybe one day we'll get into when we get to those portions. Right now, I'm not going to do it. I'm just bringing up some of the logistics that we have to think about when you look at these when you look at that particular midrash. Okay, next thing. So it says Hani Teisha de Rosh Hashanah. So now we have 9 prayers on Rosh Hashanah. In our Shemona Esrei Rosh Hashanah, we have 9 separate times. So Keneged me, what's that corresponding to? So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Demin Kartignan. That's where he came from, Kartignan. I have no idea where Kartignan is. It says Keneged Tet Achzarot She'amra Chana B'Tfilata. That was corresponding to the 9 mentions of Hashem that Chana said in her prayer. When did she say a prayer? 2nd chapter of Shmuel Aleph. It says that in the parsha of Aleph Libi, my heart is rejoicing. She's impregnated. She gives the baby and so on. That's the second. I think it's after she had the baby that she was saying that song. I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Yeah, after she had the baby. Right. Good. And so that's, since she said 9 mentions of Hashem, that's why we have 9 prayers. Okay, next. And then it says, the Amamar, because the Master said, Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Hashanah, Nifkada Sarah, Rachel, V'chana. 3 of our, not matriarchs, but 3 of famous women had children on Rosh Hashanah. Sarah had Yitzchak on Rosh Hashanah. Rachel had, I'm guessing, Yosef on. Wait, that's impossible. Oh, they became impregnated. That's what happened. She became impregnated on Rosh Hashanah, Rachel, and also Chana on Rosh Hashanah. How do I know that? Because Yitzchak was born when? When was Yitzchak born?
I don't know.
Pesach.
Oh, Pesach.
The forefathers were born on Rosh Hashanah. But he was born, but certainly Yitzchak was born on Pesach. Because it says in the Torah, at this time next year, when the Malachim is speaking to Avraham, so it said, they make a line. They say, when this time next year, you will have a boy. Okay, so that's Pesach, and it was Pesach at that particular time. How do we know it's Pesach? Because when they left Avram and they went to Lot, it only takes 1 day to get. It doesn't even take a day to get from where Avram was to Lot, and Lot serves him matzah. That's straight in the text. He gives him matzah. Why was he giving him matzah? Because it was they were holding by Pesach already. Not that they had the exact. Not that they knew. Not that the Exodus happened, but they knew of the Exodus. That's interesting. They knew they would have to give. They knew via tradition that there would be a Pesach festival for the Jews coming out, which means they knew the Jews would go into Egypt, but they didn't know how we were going to get out of the slavery. They didn't know what led up to it. Okay, they don't. In other words, we can. That's prophecy. I can see what's going to happen, but it doesn't mean I get to see everything along the way. So there's no way to tell your kids, don't go. No way. This is what happens. Fine. Okay. So v'hane chav dalid de tanita connected me. Now on a fast day, a fast day for rain. If we have let's say there's a drought in the system, so we have to declare a fast. By the time we end up at the very severe famine, we come to the last fast, there are 24 prayers in that Shemona Esrei.
Ooh.
24. We don't have any, I don't think we have any extant record of that type of Shemona Esrei. Because we don't change the Shemona Esrei. What we add is an Eina, but that's about it. Okay. So it says, "Keneged me." What is that corresponding to? So Amar Rabbi Chelbo Keneged Chaf Daled Renanot She'amar Shlomo B'Sha'a Shehichnis Aaron LeBeit Kodesh HaKodashim. That was Rabbi Chelbo said that the 24 prayers that we say during that Shemona Esrei, where we're praying for rain against the famine, So it's the emergency measure. One that we have 24 is corresponding to the 24 praises that Shlomo said in the time that he was trying to get the ark to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now, what was the problem with that? Let's just go a little further. So, actually, I'll explain to you now. So it says, the Eitz Yosef said, he quotes that they made the ark 10 amos high. V'keven shehigia lepetach Beit HaMikdash. So now when they come to the opening of the Beit HaMikdash, hayapatuach shel eser amot. The height was 10 amot. Got that? So the ark is 10 amot. And from top to bottom. And then you have the entrance of the Beit HaMikdash, the doorway, is 10 amot. Who's an engineer here? Okay, because you have a problem. Since the Aron is 10 amot and the door is 10 amot, he says it couldn't enter. And on top of that, people were carrying it. So when they came to the Beit HaMikdash and they couldn't, it couldn't happen. So Shlomo got up and he was embarrassed. He didn't know what to do. Can you imagine that mess up? Okay.
Yeah.
Make it a little smaller. Yeah. You can't raise the roof; it's already built, and you can't lower the Aron. The Aron. Can't do anything. It's 10 and 10. So what he did, he started to pray. He was asking for tachanunim. That's one thing that happened. Another thing that the rabbi that it brings down also is that the doors would not open. That's a famous midrash too. The doors were not open to the Beit HaMikdash. They stayed closed. And so again, Shlomo starts to pray to open it up. He's embarrassed to get same sort of concept. He's embarrassed. And finally, when he says, I'm the son of David, or not I'm the son of, in honor of David, you should open the doors. Okay, that's what they started to open the doors. All in the honor of David. But either way, let's go with either pshat you have there or either midrash. And it says, so ihachi, if that's the case, that he said, because he said 24 praises of God, asking for compassion, so b'chol yom nami nimrehu, then every day we should be saying all 24. We always need compassion. So Emad Amarnihu Shlomo. When did Shlomo say this? B'yom derachame, on a day that he needed to have rachamim. It was beyond the call of what's normal. On every day we need rachamim. Every day we need compassion. But when it comes to this particular day, there was a lot of embarrassment. People wanted to see the completion of all their work. And like I said, if you go with the 10 amot high, you can't get them together. That's why if you go to a bridge, what do they always say? Here's your height. Yeah. And what always happens, by the way, some trucker forgets that his truck is that high, gets stuck. And what was funny was they had a whole bunch of, I don't know if you ever heard the story. Yeah. There was, the truck gets stuck, and you have all these engineers trying to figure it out. And what happens, the little kid comes across and says, just let the air out of the tires.
He tries to how to take the bridge apart there. And
right. Lower the tires.
Peel the top of the truck off.
But here you couldn't lower anything. So it was 10-10. You can't get it in. Okay?
Yeah.
What can you do? So that's why you had to pray. And then magically, if you will, miraculously, whatever the word you want to use, that's when it would get in. But like I said, so since he did it at a time of rachamim, a time when he needed compassion, so also when we need compassion, when do we need compassion? On a fast day that is declared specifically because of a drought. That's when we also have to say those 24. In other words, you would say every day I should say 24. Have compassion. God should have compassion. No, the answer is no. Only at particular days. Because what's going to happen if I constantly daven like that is going to be like every other Shemona Esrei, we say fixed. We're not gonna. It's really gonna lose its cachet. Like anything. If I keep, that's why people. Rabbi Linda tells a story, I think, of one of his Rebbeim who would use a different siddur every single week or something. He would change the siddur so that he would never get totally used to looking at the same words. It would be a different pagination, which would give a potential for recognizing something more about it. Okay, and so we also have to try our best to keep our exuberance up. And if we're going, so now imagine here I am saying 24 praises of God. Can you imagine saying that today? We got out so late today from shul, and we had to get the kids to school. We're running to say the words. So what kind of rachamim would that be? Yeah. So that's another reason why the rabbi said, can't always be on, what's the expression? When I'm always emergency mode. Well, what's that? It's not called emergency mode. It's called, I'm always working like there's an emergency. But what is that? Do you know what this is called? What's that again?
Stressed out?
No, not stressed out. It's teachers, principals do this. They'll argue they cannot operate in a normal method because of something that could happen. So they're always in emergency mode. Do you know what the word would be, Bill?
Let me think a minute.
Okay, but whatever that is, there's a term that we use for that we're always in that mode. And if I'm always in that mode, so that mode becomes normal, it's no longer an emergency, and I just use that as an excuse not to do something. It's, I can't think. It's right at the tip of my tongue. No, but it's. But okay, y'all know what I'm talking about. But that's what it'd be. I know what it's called. I just can't remember it. Now, next one, and we're going to look at something else here. It says Pisca. Again, you should have this. Rav Yeshua said that we should say the Shemona Esrei of the abridged Shemona Esrei, actually. The abridged Shemona Esrei, which would mean that instead of saying 18 blessings, I say 7 during the week. What I do is the prayer called Havinenu. So I would say the first 3 brachot that are the standard, declaring who God is, what my relationship is. Finally, the middle one is my requests of one whole prayer, and then the last 3 are the normal. We start with Ritzay and go on to the end. That was, let's remember, they did not have a prayer book in front of them. They had to remember this. It's easier to remember 7 prayers rather than 18. And I'm not sure if they were, and we saw from another place that when it came to the prayer, the 19th prayer, so the person leading it only said it once a year because he wasn't leading. So apparently the leader of not everybody was davening Shemona Esrei. It was the leader, the Shliach Tzibor, who was doing it, and we were all responding, Amen. That's apparently what was going on. So if that's the case, if I'm alone, it's easier to remember 1. So here we go. So what is it? My main Yudchet. What is this prayer that we're calling the abridged Shemona Esrei? So here we go. It says, Rav Amar Me'ein Kol Bracha Ubaracha. It's an abridgment of each and every blessing. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel said that the 13 blessings are condensed into 1 blessing using the following text. And here we go. Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu ledat drachecha. Give us discernment, Hashem, our God, to know your ways. Umol et levavenu liratecha, and to circumcise our hearts to fear you. V'tislach lanu liot geulim, and forgive us so that we may be redeemed. V'rachakenu imach ovenu, and keep us away from our sufferings. V'dashnenu bin od artecha, and fatten us in the pastures of your land. Unefutzotenu mi arba tekabetz, and our dispersions gather in from the 4 corners of the earth. Ve'atoim al da'atcha yishpatu. That would be for the Malshinim. And those judges, I'm sorry, yeah, no, it's for, I'm sorry, that was for, let the judges judge correctly. And those judges who err, let them be inspired to judge according to your mind. V'yal rishayim tanif yedech, and against the wicked lift up your hand. V'yizvachu tzadikim bevinyan irecha v'tikun heichalecha, and let the righteous rejoice in the building of your city and in the perfection of your sanctuary. U'v'tzmichat keren l'David avdecha, and in the flourishing of the pride of David, your servant. U'v'yarichat nir leven yishai mishichecha, and the preparation of the lamp for the son of Jesse, your anointed. Terem nikra atatana, before we call, you answer. Baruch atah Hashem, shamet tefillah, blessed are you Hashem, who hears prayers. That is, if you would say that, that whole thing. Again, first three, this one, last three. You have fulfilled your obligation of shemona esrei, according to that opinion. And of course, there's another one that says, there's another opinion that says, Layet Allah Abaya man demach li'avinenu. Abaya, condemned one, would use this prayer on a regular basis. He would agree that if I am in a no-win situation, I need to daven, and I don't know it, I just remember this, or I'm not going to have the concentration, whatever the case is going to be, so then I can rely upon this. But in a normal situation, I should not rely upon this, which is why today, I don't know if anybody knows that prayer. We all know the Shemona Esrei, but I don't know if anybody uses that prayer today.
Yeah, so today, because everybody has a sitter today, and those who daven regularly.
And if you don't, you have the app. You have the app.
Yeah.
It's on everybody's cell phone. It's so amazing what's on cell phones. But it's, no, they don't call it cell phone. It would be on the iPad or iPhone. Smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this, no, because this doesn't have anything. So it's, but it's interesting what people do. Yeah, okay, so now you had that, right? That you had?
No.
Oh, really?
I think mine starts next to 29b, it looks like.
Okay.
Praying at the right time.
Wow. Okay, then you're really off then.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we come to the next one. It says like this. Pitchka Rabbi Eliezer Omer had tefillah tokeva. If somebody makes one should not make their prayer a fixed thing. So the Gemara asked. We're already on 29b.
Yeah.
Say my keva. What is the definition of keva? This is an important thing too. What does it mean fixed? So Amar Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, Amar Rabbi Yoshia. He's Rabbi Yaakov, the son of Idi, said in the name of Rabbi Oshia. And again, I want to emphasize, it's very important to know who says what. In other words, why, you could ask, why didn't the rabbi just take credit for it? He could have said, the Gemara could have just simply said, Rabbi Yaakov, the son of Idi, said the statement. Why did it have to go, Rabbi Yaakov Idi bar Idi said in the name of Rabbi Yoshia? Why do you have to do that? Because it says that when I quote a person, when I quote a statement, B'Shem Omro, by the name of the one who said it, that is what causes Mashiach to come. If I do not quote the person who said it, that is what stops the Mashiach from coming. Okay, so if I have to give proper attribution, or as they would say in college, footnote it. Okay, you need to tell who said it. Yeah.
So why doesn't it just say Rabbi Yoshia said?
Because it wants to also give a long tradition. It wants to also that it came through.
So that shows that it was carried down.
Right, and on top of that, you have the person speaking is quoting Rabbi Yaakov, but Rabbi Yaakov didn't come up with this. It was Rabbi Yoshia, and it could be that Rabbi Yoshia learned from his Rabbi. Maybe we know his Rabbi.
So at the time they decided to write this down, this was the chain that came down.
Right. Okay. So, and sometimes you have 3 or 4 names. And that's a very strong tradition to say blanks in the name of blanks in the name of blanks in the name of blank. Wow, that's a tremendous tradition. Here we know 2 generations who are doing it. His Rebbe said it, or he's quoting that in that name. But that's what I'm saying. It's very important, if you know who to attribute the statement to, you should always attribute it to that person. Anyway, he said, Kol tefilato dome alav kamasoi. A fixed prayer is any prayer that is considered upon you like a burden, which Rashi explains. This is the language of fixed, where it's fixed upon you, and you have to. I have to do it because it's my obligation. I don't want to do it. And what do we say about prayer? Prayer should be compassionate. It should be full of compassion. I'm asking something, and if I feel I have to do this, it's just okay. I really don't want to, but I have to. That's not compassion. And why should Hashem answer me compassionately if I'm not addressing like that? I'm doing it because I have to. It's a pro forma situation. And the H. Yosef says, following this, he says, what does it mean like a burden? He explains that you pray quickly because you have an obligation. So you just want to release yourself of that obligation. So if I'm running through my prayers, that's how the H. Yosef is looking at this. If I just run through my prayers, that also is considered like a burden. Okay. Who's going on? So now, Rabbanan Amar. So it's an argument going on. Rabbanan Amar Amri Kol Mishe'ena Omra Balashon Tachanunim. If what's considered a fixed prayer is when you don't say it in the language of petition. That's also a problem. So I have to say it in the language of petition once. And the H. Yosef again says that that if I said in the language of petition, even though I considered it like a burden, my obligation, this is considered a proper prayer. Because you only need to have petition, which means that you're speaking nicely. Just like a poor person who requests compassion on himself, and if you transgress that, and you do not speak in a language of petition or softly, like a poor person asking in a soft voice, even if you don't consider a burden, your prayer is not a prayer, and you need to repeat it. So the Rabbanan were very strong on this. They said the main point of what does it mean, a fixed prayer? That one that is lacking petition. If I have petition, if I speak in the language of petition, and that's again like a poor person who is requesting something on his behalf, then if I don't have that, even though I'm doing it slowly and I have kavanah azur, it's not a tefillah. On the other hand, if I'm doing it and if I'm speaking in that sort of a language, soft and like a poor person requesting alms on behalf of himself, but I'm doing it just as an obligation, I fulfilled my obligation because prayer has to be tachanuna. Okay, so so they're looking at what is the prayer like? Is it petition or not? And again, am I speaking to God like a poor person who speaks to the richer person who is going to give me something, or give that person something, or not? If I am, good. If I'm not, I didn't fulfill my mitzvah. That's what they call a fixed prayer, which I think is an amazing thing. That's how they're defining it. Rava and Rav Yosef da'amri Travayu. So Rava and Rav Yosef, both of them said, Kol she'enu yachol chadesh ba davar. If a fixed prayer is somebody who didn't come up with anything new. That's also an interesting thing. They didn't come up with anything new. And where's that? Wait. I saw something before. So Rashi explains. What does it mean that they cannot they can't direct their hearts to ask for their needs, and come up with some new request that lashon keva keyom kain kachaya. Just like they asked yesterday, so they're asking today. Nothing really is changing. They said that's when it becomes a fixed prayer. By the way, this is in the prayer of Shema Kolenu. Hear our voice. So our scroll brings two things to say. The one where it says salachti, asking God to forgive us for our sins, and then right next to it is a prayer for parnasa, for livelihood. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Mishnah, I think it's some Mishnah Bror who says it, that he said one should not say that every single day, because otherwise it's going to seem as if that's the new part of the prayer. You just, if on one hand you did something wrong and you want to do tshuva, and shin shema kol is a catch-all prayer anyway. So at that point, here's the speech to make, and then you not elucidate. You start to list whatever your sin was that you're asking Hashem to forgive you for. So if you're doing it like that, then it's tachanuna, and the same thing with parnasa. If you, for some reason, feel you need to pray for God, or you want to pay raise, I guess, so you're going to do that. So he was against saying it on a daily, if I remember correctly, he was against saying it on a daily basis. Others say no, God forbid. We should say it every single day. We have to understand what our sins are every day, and we have to also ask Hashem every day for livelihood. It's only proper. Okay, but that would again be within that category of what is it? Is it tachanunim? Is it not tachanunim?
So it sounds like what he's saying. If there's a legitimate reason every day, and as long as that's heartfelt every day, but if you make it a routine every day, I'm going to throw this in here.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So now Amar Rav Zera. So Rav Zera said, "Anich an chiddush b'milta misafina dilma matiritna." So Rav Zera said, I could be mechadesh something every single day. That's not a problem. The problem is that I'm having a fear that I may become confused. Because here I am, I'm throwing in a new request every day. So by putting that in, I may not know where I left off. So that's not good. And again, we're not looking in the book. We're doing it by heart. And what happens is, we all know this, when we're speaking about one thing, and then we get off topic, out of the routine, so we forget how to go back. And so he was very concerned with that. So he said, I could read new things. I could come up with new requests, but at that time, I have the problem. I have a fear that I may not be able to, that I may get lost. So Abaya bar Avin for Rabbi Chanina bar Avin, Dami Travai, they both said, yet and again, Kol she'en mepalel im demidome chama. Anybody who does not, in other words, we should all, anyone who does not pray during the redness of the sun, that is considered the fixed prayer. What's the redness of the sun? So you say, so the article explains, the sun is red in the morning immediately after sunrise, and in the evening prior to sunset. These two times, just after sunrise and just prior to sunset, are the most propitious for reciting the morning and afternoon prayers respectively. One who does not take the trouble to schedule his prayers for these times indicates thereby the praying is a chore to him, which he is satisfied to perform in just a minimally acceptable manner. The significance of praying at these times may be explained as follows. The Gemara in Baba Batra suggests homiletically that the sun appears red in the morning because it passes near the roses in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and it appears red in the evening because it passes by the fires of Gehenna. When one prays at dawn, one will thus recall the promise of Gan Eden, and the reverence of God will enter his heart. When one prays before dark, he will recall the threat of Gehenna, and will be overcome by thoughts of repentance. In each case, his prayers will be sublime prayers, which will be accepted favorably. That's midrashic, but it says, why is it red? So you see, either passing by the roses in Gan Eden or by the fires of hell. So you're going to remember Gan Eden and go through that promise of the everlasting life, and that's what's going to spur you on in the morning. And at night, when all is getting dark anyway, it's a time for sin. So that is going to keep you on the straight and narrow. That's from the Gemara Baba Batra. And then it says, lastly, Abaya bar Avin, Rav Chanina bar Avin, der Amit Ravayu. I'm sorry, I just said that. Oh, that was right. So I just right. The Amar of Chia bar Ava, Amar of Yochanan. So it's Rav Chia, the son of Ava, who said the name of Rav Yochanan. Mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. The hitpalel im midom echama. It's a mitzvah to pray with the during the redness of the sun. V'amar Rav Zera, and Rav Zera said, "My kara'ah. What's your proof that it's a mitzvah? To say it's a mitzvah is a hard thing. So what's your proof? He said, because it says in the Torah, it says, not the Torah, it's in Psalms. They will fear you with the rising of the sun and before the moon comes up for generations upon generations. And finally it says, in the West, in Eretz Israel, in Israel, they would condemn a person who prayed mincha during the redness of the sun. My time. We were just told it's a mitzvah. We have a pasuk. We have a verse. And now you're telling me cursed is the one who does it. What's their reason? Dilma mitrafa la shaita. Because maybe what will happen is there's going to be a mishap and the opportunity to prayer will be lost. So don't wait to the last second. Okay. Even though you're going to be able to have this imagery of the fires of hell, if you will, but rather do it earlier, because anything could happen and you will not be able to daven, and you'll miss the opportunity to pray.
Yeah, so I've heard that discussion before. In other words, saying, well, the opportune time for mincha is right before sunset for reasons just mentioned, but then the other side that says, no, if you have the opportunity for a mitzvah earlier, so a lot of schools in Chicago years ago already, and they started a mincha gedola early in the afternoon at 30 minutes after. So what,
No, so what happens is
it becomes that either way is good.
No. What happens like this: if I have a fixed minyan, okay, that's really the rule. If I am always part of a minyan, and so therefore it's part of my schedule, I daven at that time. If, on the other hand, I don't have a minyan, I'm at work. And what happens is, the earliest time to daven, let's say, is 1:30. And then the latest time to daven is 5 o'clock, whatever it's going to be. And my work shift, I don't get out of work till 7. Yeah. So now, it would seem logically that once it's 1:30, mincha gedola, I should daven. Because, and if I have time. And whatever time I want to set, lunchtime, I take my lunch, I daven. Because if I say, no, I have time, then I may miss a time also. Because I'm not going to, by the time I leave work, it's night. Yeah. Okay? So I know I can't wait till I go home. But, and by the way, in the winter time, I'm sure you experience it when you're in Boston. My father and I also, when I was working, in the winter, I had to pray mincha in the place of work I was at.
Yeah, well, Chicago was too.
In Chicago. So you have no choice. Yeah. So at that point, what I would do is I always daven the earliest possible moment. I would take my lunch break and I would daven
so that you don't forget.
And I wouldn't forget. The same thing with Mariv, because I was working from 11 to 11. So there's no minyan I'm going to get to. So since I was working 11 to 11, they had to clean up as a restaurant. So I would go down to the the storeroom. You always have a corner you can daven in. Yeah. I would daven my mincha there, and then at earliest possible moment. The same thing for Mariv. I would go down. I wouldn't wait till I go home because I'm going to be tired. Yeah. So I would daven I was a mashgiach. I mean, they weren't. I wasn't that important to the situation every second of the day. Now I always tell them. They knew that I would be disappearing for 10 minutes. Okay. Again, it was after the cooking. It wasn't cooking. You can't go in the busy times. You have to go in at a proper time. But the minute I could do it, I would do it. Mm-hmm. And that would get me out of all situations. And that's what he's really talking. If that's what the Gemara was talking about. If on the other hand I have a minyan I'm going to, and I'm always a regular at that minyan, there's no reason for me to assume I'm going to be late.
Okay, so here, let's say you're in Chicago in a place where you have you're in the neighborhood, you work in the neighborhood, and you have lots of minyanim, and so you could go either to a mincha gedola or you could go.
You just broke the rule. I said if I go to a regular minyan.
But you have
if I don't go to a regular minyan, then get the earliest one.
But let's say you have a choice of either the early minyan or the late minyan.
So I would. No, but I'm saying if I'm not normally going to one, if I'm switching back and forth, then I would always default. I would always go for the early minyan, then default to the late one.
Okay. So in other words, if you have the chance to die, let's say in a community. Well, here of course you have the yeshiva, but most people aren't in the neighborhood during the day per se.
Correct.
So the shul minyan, so you should go to that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to buzz in from work to go to early mincha. Just go.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the plan to daven with the community.
Right.
But the community sets it.
But here, don't forget, in Steel Warehouse they have their own minyan. So what they do is they daven there mincha.
Yeah.
They don't daven Marav, they daven mincha.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. They made it easy for themselves. Mm-hmm. Baruch Hashem, we have a big enough congregation here, so they can daven there. Mm-hmm. So if I want, I can daven at the day school, at the yeshiva, or if I'm working in Steel Warehouse, or for the regular person who's not doing either one of them, and they want to catch a minyan, you go to HLC.
Yeah.
Or you make up your own as you go along. But if I'm not going to any one of those options, so then I should daven as soon as I can, and not worry about it's not a normal thing on my schedule. So I have to try to do it as soon as I can. We'll have to stop here.
Okay.